Set. Action. Bring the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the North Reading School Committee. It's July 28th, 2014. The first item on our agenda, as always, is public input. If there's anybody that would like to be heard about any item that is not on the agenda, you can raise your hand and be recognized. I don't see anybody. Okay. So we're going to move on to our next item, and that is going to be the presentation from Mark Favreau regarding the petition to name the middle school after Charles Jones. And I'm going to give the floor to Mark.
Thank you, Jerry. First of all, before I get started, I'd like to thank the committee for inviting me here tonight and allowing me to speak. And I'd also like to thank Jerry individually for personally extending me an invite to do this.
You're welcome.
He's obliging.
As many of you may or may not know, a few weeks ago, there appeared a letter in the transcript, happened to be written by my son, John, talking about naming the new middle school after Charles E. Jones. That created a groundswell of support, as you may or may not know. In addition to writing the letter, he also posted a petition online under change.org, and I'll get into the specifics on that, but that also created quite a groundswell of support. Just for those of you who don't know me, once again, my name is Mark Favreau. It's my wife Lillian. We've been residents here in North Reading for 29 years. We have two sons that both went through the school systems here, graduated from both the middle school and the high school, both of them did. And so that's my situation. Many of you probably know and have heard of Charlie Jones. But what I thought might be very helpful here tonight is to kind of take you through. Some people think of Charlie Jones, the teacher, but what a lot of people don't know is that Charlie Jones was not just an educator, he was an administrator, he was a community activist, and he was an innovator in this town. And I'm going to go through some of those things during the presentation.
Yeah, we won't hold it against him that he's a lawyer, too.
Oh, no. You should have held that for the end.
Okay, so how did it all begin? So Charlie started out as a teacher. He spent 6 years in the classroom before becoming a teaching administrator, a job he loved for the 38 years he served in North Reading. Charlie was there from the beginning. Mr. Jones was part of the new faculty that opened up the then new North Reading Junior High, as it was known back in 1964.
I'm glad you got that picture before they tore down
Exactly.
the facade there. The overhang. Yeah, exactly.
There's not much left up there.
So 6 years after Charlie started teaching at the junior high school, he was appointed acting vice principal. He served in that capacity for 2 years. He was one of two acting vice principals who also taught classes while he was acting vice principal. During that time, he also oversaw the development of a team approach, which was a brand new concept at the time, for teaching grade 6, a modification which is still used today. 2 years after he'd get named acting vice principal, Charlie was named vice principal of the North Reading Middle School. He was named in that position, of course, by the school committee. So after several years as vice principal, Mr. Jones was named principal of the North Reading Junior High School. He was appointed to that position at a time of great transition and financial difficulty, because I think everybody here remembers what happened when Proposition 2.5 was passed. One of the things Mr. Jones had to do immediately was to let go 5 teachers, which was really tough. But the school continued to grow and flourish under his leadership. At the time, the North Reading Junior High School was known as one of the best junior high schools in the area, and Mr. Jones did not let the fact that he had some financial challenges, just as everybody, cut back on the quality of education that was given to the kids here in North Reading. A lot of people don't know, also he was a technology pioneer. As technology began to emerge in the 80s, Charlie thought it was really important that the North Reading Junior High School get a computer. Unfortunately, once again, due to the financial difficulties that were going on at the time, there was just no money in the budget available to do that. So Charlie went out on his own, purchased a computer, and that was the first computer used in the junior high school. He also volunteered to work with Wayne Laboratories during this period because he wanted to get as much as he could out of the computer. And he worked with a special software package that they had just developed at the time that allowed them to do all the scheduling on the computer. And North Reading Junior High became the first school in this area and in the district to utilize a computer to do the scheduling. He was also a community friend. I mean, there was a number of things Charlie did in the community outside the classroom and outside being an educator. He assisted the community choral in becoming a charitable contribution, told them what steps they had to go through to get that done. And of course, this is from somebody who doesn't sing, and he will definitely agree with me on that. He also served as a counsel for the community church in town, which he was not a member. But because giving back to the community has always been at the core of who Charlie is, he felt that this was very important to do, and he did that for a number of years. The other thing he also did is he brought in a number of businesses into the junior high school to talk to the kids about what's involved in starting a business, what things should you be thinking about now. You know, a lot of people would say, gee, these kids are in junior high school. You know, why would you bring in business leaders to talk about how to start a business? They're too young for that. But Charlie has and always did feel that you can never prepare kids too early. You know, these are kids who are gonna have to make some major decisions in the next 4 years as they go through high school, and to be able to get an idea of what might be involved in starting their own business might make them feel a little bit more comfortable about making that leap. So he did that for a number of years, forged a lot of really good relationships with a lot of the local businesses, not only in North Reading, but in the surrounding communities. I don't know how many of you remember this. Back in 1987, North Reading decided that it was going to take part in the 200th anniversary of the Constitution. Obviously, this was not a school event, but a town event. And at that time in North Reading, in order to serve on this official commission, you had to be a North Reading resident. But the commission, as it stood at the time, felt very strongly about getting Charlie on the commission due to the fact with his background in political science, due to the fact he is a lawyer, as Jerry mentioned, and they could really felt that they could use him as a resource. But unfortunately, there was this charter that said that it had to be a local resident. Charlie has been a longtime resident of Beverly. They asked him to serve in the commission, and the Board of Selectmen at the time unanimously voted to waive that provision, and Mr. Jones was sworn in at North Reading's Town Hall in 1987 and served on that commission for a year. A lot of people call him, and I'll get to this later, the consummate teacher. I mean, he brought the outside world into his classroom. He had members of Congress come in and talk to the kids, member of the state legislature, a lot of people in the court system. Obviously, he knew a lot of these people due to his activities as a lawyer, judges, paralegals, et cetera, to come in and really get them to understand outside the textbook what the workings of the government is on the state and federal level. And then he brought his classroom to the world, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Many of you may or may not have heard of these educational trips that Charlie took a lot of his kids on during the summers. For 27 years, he organized these trips during his vacations, obviously for no extra pay, during his vacations and their vacations. And they found that by learning the value of discipline, teamwork, and community, you saw these boys and girls over a period of 30 days grow from being, as I said, boys and girls to young men and women. I put these pictures up just to give you a little bit of a flavor for what these trips were like. A lot of people who don't know about the trips thought it was, 30 days of going out and having fun and being with your friends and, seeing sights that you never saw before and, having your Walkman in your head as you drove throughout the country. But if you look at, for instance, this first picture in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a group of kids, and what they're doing is they're setting up the kitchen. Now, these trips involved staying in one place no longer than 2 or 3 days. So what does that mean? That means that every 2 or 3 days, they had to tear down a campsite that held 50 kids and anywhere between 10 and 12 chaperones, pack it all up, put it on the truck, then head to the next campsite, take it all off and put them up. You'll see the tents, a couple of the tents set up here. The kids were told that at any time they could have a pop inspection. So they learned to keep these tents neat, clean, orderly, and it gave them the sense of responsibility. Now, my first worry when I went on the trip, I was lucky enough to go on 2 of the trips, was how are these kids gonna know how to do this? They've never, some have never seen a tent, let alone set one up before. So what Charlie did prior to each trip is he had all the kids that were going on the trip over at his house in Beverly for a full day on Saturday. And what they did is they set up as if it was a campsite in his backyard. They would take the tents up, they'd learn how to stake them, They learned how to pull and take them down. They learned how to put the tarp over them, because inevitably, wherever we showed up at a campsite, it would be raining, or it could be raining. Also taught them how to set up the kitchen. You know, like I said, you had to feed 50 people and 10 or 12 chaperones every single night. Every one of the kids was on a KP list on a daily basis. You may have to be cutting up the vegetables for dinner that night. You may be responsible for washing all the dishes after dinner is over that night. You may be responsible for getting all the cereal boxes all lined up so all the kids can get what they want to eat. So it was once again, it was a true educational experience, but it built teamwork and it built responsibility and owning your own responsibility. This picture over here shows the Ryder truck, which always led the way, being unloaded. It almost looks like a fireman's bucket brigade there, because they had to know how to scientifically pack the truck so that certain things came off at the right time. They worked together. It was like a well-oiled machine 2 or 3 days into the trip. These kids took the responsibility. There were no slackers. Nobody said, I don't really feel like doing that today. Everybody knew that they had responsibilities, and they stuck by it. This shows a bunch of the kids at Zion and Bryce Canyons exploring. This is one whole group, and it's kind of hard to see here, but behind them is Mount Rushmore. Once again, here we are. I wasn't on this particular trip, but here we are arriving at a campsite. You see all the gears on the ground here, and getting ready for the kids to go ahead and set it up. We pulled into a campsite one night. It was raining like it was raining this morning, and I said to myself, how are we possibly going to do this? He had it down scientifically. The kids knew what to do. We set up the tarp over the kitchen area, all the picnic tables, took the tents off, made sure they stayed dry, then set up the tents one at a time, got the kitchen going. All this while the rain was pouring down, and we all, 60 of us ended up having dinner at 7 o'clock at night. And this the last picture just shows you one of the stops. North Reading does have, as I know every one of you know, a long history of naming traditions. Obviously, we have 3 elementary schools who are all named after individuals. In the case of the J. Turner Hood School, that was an educator, a former teacher. And the other 2 did their service through what you folks are doing here or other things within the community in North Reading. So we do have a tradition of naming schools here in North Reading after individuals. If you look at some of our neighboring towns, like Reading, Andover, Danvers, there's 4 middle schools, for instance, that are all named after individuals. So not only in North Reading do we have this tradition, but we also have the tradition in our surrounding communities. I mentioned the tremendous support, just to give you an idea. So far, this is the petition that was signed, that was online with change.org. Right now, if you look at this, there's nearly 1,000 signatures on here to rename the new middle school, the Charles E. Jones Middle School. 370 of the people who are signed this petition are current North Reading residents. The one that really makes a big deal to me is that out of the 1,000 people who signed, 180 felt strongly enough about this that they wrote personal letters. And this is a copy of all the personal letters, which I'll leave with you folks. I'm going to show you some of the responses, but obviously this is way too voluminous to be put up on a slide. But 180 people wrote personal letters about Charlie and how he changed their lives, how he took care of their kids, how he really made a difference with all the kids in North Reading. In addition to that, there's been, which I'm sure most of you seen, there's been 7 letters to the editor written since the initial letter that went in to rename the middle school, Charles E. Jones Middle School. Of the 1,000 signatures, they represent people from 37 states in the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. Every single one of those folks, they no longer live in North Reading, but at one time they lived in North Reading. Their children had Mr. Jones. They had Mr. Jones. They worked with Mr. Jones on some community activities. And, obviously it's due to the power of the internet, but to see that kind of response is truly amazing. I don't know if we've ever had any petition in North Reading that's got 1,000 signatures on it. In addition to the 37 states in the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, people from 4 different foreign countries also responded to the petition. I got 3 slides here. I just want to take you through some of the excerpts. And the ones that I've picked are the ones that have reoccurring themes. In other words, these are the words spoken by whoever wrote the letter, But many times through the 180 letters, if you want to take the time to read them, you'll see it's repeated over and over again. So I'll just go through some of them. No one deserves this more. Never met a more caring and qualified teacher. Has gone far above and beyond to enrich so many lives. The best and most influential teacher I ever had. Taught many skills over and above his history classes. I am who I am as an educator today because of Charles E. Jones. His classes and trips taught life skills. True heroes should be remembered forever. Made a lasting impression on countless students in the community. Truly a one-of-a-kind person. Most selfless educator I ever met. I would challenge anybody to think of somebody who deserves this honor more. He taught a lot of young people in this town that they could do anything, and then he showed them the way. Believed in the ability of students to intellectually stretch beyond their perceived limits. Has made a huge impact on thousands of kids who lived here in North Reading. I am one of them. A wonderful man that helped many children from going down the wrong path. A giant among men in so many ways. The residents are forever grateful for his generosity. A spectacular human being, and has changed my life for the better. Seems impossible to be able to give back to Charlie what he has given to so many students and families in North Reading. The solution here is simple. Change the policy. So this is the final slide. I just want to go through the next steps that myself and other supporters of this initiative plan on going forward with. Obviously, this is step one. We would like to attempt to secure the support of you folks, as well as the Board of Selectmen. We're going to submit a citizens petition sponsored by Pat Lee in August to rename the middle school the Charles E. Jones Middle School. And we're going to work on getting as many North Reading citizens to attend town meeting as possible on October 6th. So once again, I really thank you all for the ability to come here and speak this evening, and we look forward to any discussion you'd like to have about this.
Mark, thank you very much. That was very compelling. There's a lot of people in the audience, so at this time, before we come back to the committee for comments, I'm going to ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to comment or make any kind of a statement on behalf of this presentation. Mr. Steve Jervy.
Try to keep it brief. Last time I saw Charlie Jones was at a ceremony when he was one of the people being honored by Salem State.
You know what, Steve? Would you mind coming up to the microphone, just so we can pick it up on TV?
All right.
Yeah.
Steve Jervy, 21 Woodland Drive. Last time I saw Charlie Jones was at a ceremony when he and several other people were honored by Salem State University for their work as teachers. And Charlie, with typical modesty, was spending as much of his time as he could with his former students. I personally I remember as a school committee member that we had a policy that covered the high school, and I would continue to support that. But I would have, as a citizen, I don't see any objection to changing the policy to allow a middle school to be named in someone's honor. The idea of naming elementary schools used to include the 6th grade anyway, which is now part of the middle school, if people are looking for an additional rationale. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else? Bob and then Mark, okay? Bob? Bob Masseri?
I had the honor of being a school committee member for 12 years.
Did you write this policy?
No.
Oh, okay.
We're trying to find out who
All right,
did.
we're trying to find out who did. Go ahead.
Trying to find out who did.
All right.
Well, Charlie was a teacher, and all of my kids had Charlie in history at middle school, and I believe 2 of them went on the trips. I know him personally. He's a great man. Speaking from a Board of Selectmen, I'm trying to say neutral on this, associated with what the school committee wants to do. I'll also say publicly that the warrant closes on August 18th for citizens petitions. You understand that?
Thank you.
So, and it has to be a town meeting vote. If the school committee were to decide to move forward on it, then the school committee has a little more latitude associated when they submit an article to, for town meeting, just so.
Thank
for
you.
the record.
Thank you, Bob. Mark Hall?
Thank you. My experience, I grew up in town, so I went to the junior high school, we called it. And when I first got into junior high school, I think Charlie was already there, but I gotta say, he's mean. He's a very, very mean guy. He was the vice principal, and he straightened out that school. It was like the Wild West when we get in there. There was all kinds of stuff going on. And he walked down the hallway with his suit and looked straight ahead while everybody's making fun of him behind his, back and everything. He knew it. But after I got to know him a little better, I found out he's the nicest guy in the world. I went on a trip with my son Jordan, and I said, I'm gonna walk with you towards the back of the line. We gotta talk, I said, you're the meanest guy in town. And that's what I had to do. That was my job.
Charlie was a disciplinarian, there's no getting around it, he was.
But he played both ends and the middle. Very generous person, and everything Mr. Favreau said about this trip, it's incredible what he does. I don't know if any of you have been on one, but I'm sure it'd be easy to talk about if you had, because it's incredible. I've gone on 2 of them, and why he does it, I don't know. He puts up with the kids, and the work is incredible. The fun, it doesn't go with just the trip, it's the fundraising and everything.
I know, Mark, as much benefit as it was to the kids, I loved them, because my kids, one of them, my daughter was gone 40 days, it was the best summer I ever had.
Yeah.
I swear to God. She was gone for 40, that was the longest one I ever had. And it
When
was-
Jordan
it
went,
was
there was
fantastic.
41 kids. How do you do that?
Yeah.
So, but I can't say enough about him, and I don't know about the policy, but I can't think of anybody that deserves this recognition better than Charlie. So, yeah, that's my support.
Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Pat Lee?
Oh, wait, I wanted to say, Mark, you don't have to reveal anything, but I'm guessing you incurred the wrath of Charlie Jones many times while you were in the junior high school.
I didn't. I was petrified.
All right, I'll believe you, Mark. All right.
We'll let that one
That's what
go.
happened.
Still Lee.
And Mark's correct about Charlie being the tough guy in the middle school. First of all, I want to thank the Favreaus for stepping up and bringing this whole idea forward. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think Charlie is well deserving of this. I don't know how many of you know him personally or experienced him within the system, but Charlie wouldn't be happy about me talking about this, but he was my teacher. And it might be dating him, but my teacher as well as some of my children. So I had the experience of him being that tough educator as a youngster, but also experiencing the give back that Charlie had done over many, many years. Think about this. What was it, 27 years, average 40 to 50 kids. I'm gonna do rough numbers, but that's 1,200 kids that he brought on trips over the years. How many kids go to the middle school right now?
670.
So that school times 2, that's how many kids he brought on trips over the summers. And it's one thing to take the 30 or 40 days that he did of his own personal time to do the trip, but then all the preparation that it took and all the rehearsing and all the other hours that he put in, unpaid, just to do the right thing by that group of kids for that year. I think it was generally 8th graders that went to, they were required to go to, I think, to his history class. And they would be required to pass certain benchmarks or tests along the way to make sure they earn their way to this, on this trip. It was a privilege to go on this trip. So what he did, the standards he set for these young people and the goals that he set for them and what he challenged them to do, as it said here, changed their lives. It wasn't just a simple trip of jumping on a van and going to see certain sites in the western part of the country. It's the standards and the challenges that he set for them throughout the year before they even got on that bus. And those are the things, those are the life lessons that I think he contributed to so many kids throughout the years. And I think really that's the point, is the give back that he had, the lives that he changed. How many kids in middle school are, very, how should I say?
Cynical.
Could be what's that?
Cynical.
Yeah. And they could be influenced one way or the other. And then they run up with a gentleman like this that challenges them, set them in the right direction, shows them the right thing to do, allows them to learn more about themselves, that they can be a better person than they are right now. Again, maybe I'm preaching to the choir. Maybe you all know Charlie, but I think based on the timeline of the people that are sitting on the board right now and Charlie's tenure, I think there really was an overlap. I don't know, when did Charlie retire?
About 2002.
2002. So I wish I had done my homework a little bit more, as Mark did, but so I don't have his exact timelines. But I think if you knew Charlie, if you experienced what he gave back to this community, the people that he influenced, I kind of get a flashback to that, what was that movie, Mr. Opus or something? Where,
Mr. Holland's
Mr.
Opus.
Holland's
Okay.
Great
all right.
movie.
And I remember the scene where the young lady who couldn't play the instrument and then became governor or something like that. That's what I see about the Charlie Jones story. Taking young people and challenging them to do certain things that they never thought they could do, and later in life became somebody that they probably never expected that they would be. And that's where I think Charlie really done to give back. And truly, if we're gonna take a look at this and dedicate the naming of the building to an educator, I don't know where you can go and find a better educator, someone who's dedicated more time and effort to this community than Charlie did over his tenure here. And as it said earlier, as Mark said, he didn't just do it with the kids, he brought the community in. I know that I had done some speaking for him at the middle school. I know that other businesses did to try to educate the kids from what was going on outside the classroom, not what was going on just inside the classroom and inside the books. So, truly, I think I would hope that you strongly consider it, because this is a very, very special man that was in this town for many, many years. And I think it's something that would be the right thing to do by this town for this man. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the committee for comments, questions. Mel, go ahead.
Pat mentioned the overlap. I missed, Charlie left the middle school as my daughter was starting the middle school. So I never met Charlie personally. Obviously, I've heard all the stories and a lot of the stuff tonight that Mark, some new stuff they had never heard before. But no, he's a great man. The biggest issue I have, and this is a school department issue, and we've actually looked at some other school departments around the state, and not policies, but the procedures they have. We don't have a procedure, and I don't know what procedure was followed when the elementary schools were named. We don't have a procedure, and why I say that is, I think naming a school building after anyone is a pretty serious thing, because it's a lifetime honor. And all we have is a policy that says we won't name the middle and high school, and from what I know, all the town has is you can just bring it to town meeting and it gets approved. That's fine, that's the policy we have. I was looking at the Acton-Boxborough policy, and what they do is if there's going to be consideration for a school to be named, they form a 9-member committee, which includes community members, I think a school committee member, maybe a member of the Board of Selectmen, and then they accept nominations. And then they have this whole process laid out where they, I guess they vet the candidates. I don't have an issue with Charlie Jones. I don't have an issue. I praise you for coming forward with his name. I just wish we had a better policy or a better procedure in place to deal with this, because we don't have one now. The other thing I'll say is I've been trying to find out why we've had the policy in place for 40 years that we've had. I don't know why we have it. It was, which says we will not name the high school or the middle school, that they will both bear the name North Reading High School, North Reading Middle School. That was approved in October of '74. So we've had that for 40 years, so it's kind of hard to find out why. I mean, my guess is we have it because we only have one high school and one middle school, so we want them to be named after the town, but I have no idea. So my issue here is with the procedure that we don't have to follow. And Superintendent Willis, I believe we don't have anything, for example, like the Acton-Boxborough procedure, correct?
No, the only thing that's on the books is the policy that you've just referenced, policy FDCA, naming of fields and special facilities.
Right. And do we have any information as to how those elementary schools were named, what the process was? Mr. Mosseri, do you remember when those elementary schools were named? Were you?
Those schools were there.
Pat might remember. Pat, do you remember?
Well, this was Maria Murphy School.
That's right.
Yeah.
First principal? And was that the little school as well?
Little school's named after, I think, an educator and a school committee member. The little school, yeah.
So that, I mean, those are I don't have, I think that we need to, you're going to do a petition, it's going to be on the warrant. We need to decide between now and town meeting whether we're gonna support that petition or not. And, you know, right now, I'm neutral on it. I think we need to talk more on it. The committee hasn't talked about it at all. The support is enormous that he has, and as I said, I've heard nothing but good things about him my entire life. I kind of felt gypped by the fact that my son and daughter couldn't have him because he was gone when my daughter started the middle school. So I thank you for coming tonight. A very comprehensive presentation. Thanks.
Karen?
Okay, I'm up. So I'm not a lifelong North Reading resident. I grew up in Hanover, which is practically identical demographically to North Reading, but that aside, I think what strikes me so much is that this individual is of such exceptional character that it does require some notice. And, you know, I remember going to school and having teachers and educators that were absolutely influential and incredible in my life. And not just a high school student, middle school also. I had one elementary teacher who really talked me into becoming more of a student because I was a C student at one time in my life and I ended up being a valedictorian at the end. And I remember the influence that had on me. So I fully understand that this is an exceptional person. And to me, that's the operative word, exceptional. We have a policy to which we could make an exception. But I really would rather have a real policy that underlies, you know, sort of our rationale as a community, what we want to do with our buildings. And any aspect of our buildings. We have several, you know, sections of our schools that we can name. We actually discussed this when when was it? Was it like, I can't remember the teacher that we named.
Eleanor Dell.
Eleanor Dell, thank you very much. You know, who made a huge financial contribution by endowing a scholarship. And so there are considerations, I think, and precedent for considering a change in policy. That being said, I don't really know what I think about it without more community input, and I would really favor a procedure to do that. I've just now, you know, been through the process of our selecting a new superintendent, and the process that goes along with that. And there's something that I think is very wholesome and effective by having a microcosm of people come together who represent different constituent groups and going through a process. And I think process is important. I'm not opposed to this in any way, but I want to make sure that there's equity and that all members of our community have an opportunity to contribute to that process, so that we can make a good decision about the policy itself, except, you know, separate from the merit of this individual, which is outstanding and should be celebrated in some way.
Right.
I hope we can find some way to celebrate him, whether it is naming the middle school after him or in some other way. I think recognition is important, and we should acknowledge him publicly, given all the outpouring of support. I've never seen anything like it. I know I'm a little suspicious of online, you know, petitions because I've signed thousands of them in my life. But to know that there's, you know, over 300 people from North Reading who have contributed that, to me that says there's a group of people who are willing to participate in the process to help figure out whether this makes sense. I would really love to know why we don't why this policy is in existence and what the rationale is. I'm trying to think of, well, why wouldn't you name a school after somebody? What's the rationale behind not naming it? Is it because everybody owns the debt of education we give to our students, or is there some other rationale? And I really can't come up with a good one.
The only thing I remember, Karen, and this was in the transcript when they do the 50 years ago today, there was an effort to name the junior high the John F. Kennedy Junior High School when it was built 50 years ago, whatever. And that caused a big, at least according to the old transcripts, it caused there was a lot of discussion in town. And while our policy didn't happen, and it happened 9 years later, I'm wondering if that somehow down the line tripped this policy being put in
Essentially,
place.
that's interesting.
But they ended up, I think it was at a town meeting, deciding not to name it after JFK. Although I do remember they said if we're going to name school buildings, there are plenty of local people we should name them after, as opposed to naming them after state or national figures, is what I remember. That's how they settled that back in
That's interesting.
the ancient days of 1964.
So I think
74.
that's a really important
64, yeah.
consideration. And again, having a good process will help us figure out, how do we determine who we name, how consistent can we be? Because we need to be consistent about how we name things and why we name them, and ensure that there is support. We obviously have the support piece, we just need the process to back it up.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
Janine?
Jeannie?
Anything?
Well, before the letter and the transcript, had never actually heard of Charles E. Jones, so I'm also a transient into North Reading in 1995, so my kids weren't old enough to have gone into the middle school at that point. I love hearing about great educators. The first one I came across was obviously Ellen Ardell, and I felt so sad that I never had the chance to meet her. She sounded just absolutely wonderful, and Charles E. Jones seems to be someone that touched, obviously, a great many people's lives. I don't have a feeling whether it's a good or a bad decision to name the school after him, but I have a question for you, or not you specifically, but in general. If the school was not to be named after him, how would you feel about like the distance learning lab, or what's commonly referred to right now as Main Street, and calling it the Charles E. Jones Way, as it's a bridge from the middle school to the high school? Would you entertain something of that?
Interesting.
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but for those who I have talked to up to this point, if you remember the last slide, that's pretty much the path that we plan on going down right now. We would love to have the support of the school committee. I fully understand that the process that's in place right now, or not in place right now, certainly does need to be addressed by you folks. But in the short term, and since town meeting seems to be the only way that something like this can happen today, I think that's the path we're probably going down.
As far as the policy is concerned, I don't know why it was enacted. It was enacted in 1974. It was ratified in 1983 and again in 2012, so it goes back like two generations. So I'm not sure why it was put in place. But I can say this, I think it's irrelevant, because we made the policy as a school
Right,
committee,
we
a
can
simple
change it.
vote of the school committee,
Right.
we can change it.
Yep.
That's all there is to it. The second reason it's irrelevant is because if this goes on a warrant article and it goes to town meeting's gonna vote, in all likelihood, to approve this, and that's gonna supersede any policy we have anyway.
Well, I did talk to the town clerk, and she said it would likely supersede, but that would be an issue to be decided by town council.
Yeah, but I'd bet on it. I would bet on the fact that our policy can be superseded by a bylaw that requires this type of a vote at town meeting.
Yeah.
I happen to know Charlie Jones very, very, very well. I knew him when he was, very well. And I know when he was a teacher at the middle school, vice principal at the middle school, but I also knew him through the trips, and two of my three kids went on the trips. Mark could have spent, honest to God, 4 hours putting pictures up of the trips. He referenced Mount Rushmore, but there's, the places that these kids went, the Grand Canyon, Yosemite National Park, Yellowstone, San Francisco, the Black Hills, it goes on and on and on. I mean, these trips, literally, my daughter was gone, I think it was the longest one for 40 days. And the other thing about, and I think Pat referenced it, you didn't just get to go on the trip because you were in the 8th grade. You had to apply to go on this trip. And this trip there were things that were required of you. You had to do certain things, not the least of which at the very end was to recite the Gettysburg Address. And that was extremely important to Charlie. That had to be done. And that made a lot of kids nervous, having to take that particular step. The other thing that they did, and not every group that runs trips does this, but they did fundraising to the point where they paid for not all of the trip, but a a great part of the trip. And the trip itself, above and beyond everything that Charlie did at the middle school, is really unique. I'm not sure who else does anything like this. But this was nothing to do with the school. It wasn't sponsored by the school. Charlie did this for all these years on his own initiative. It's remarkable. You could go that many years with that many kids and have very, very few incidents take place. As was pointed out, I think, by Mark and Pat, these kids were fully responsible for running this trip. Once they, other than driving the vehicles, which they were too young to do, they were responsible for putting up the tents, taking down the tents, cooking, cleaning up, all kinds of things. And it was really a remarkable experience. In the later years, as Charlie was doing this, he was assisted by Claudia Brown, who happened to be my next-door neighbor, who abutted right up to my backyard. So for the last 5 or 6 years, Mark, those tents and everything were set up in my backyard and in Claudia's front yard. So I had a chance to see firsthand. In fact, I used to call the fathers over. They used to come over to my house and go into my man cave, and we'd have a couple of beers together while the kids were out there putting up the tents and everything. But he was an extraordinary person, absolutely, positively, and a nice guy. And he was somebody that, to have all these people speak so highly of him when he was, in fact, in the role of vice principal for so long as a disciplinarian, I think that speaks volumes. Again, my concern is, as Mel pointed out, this is a huge step, and it's basically forever. I tried to think of who might be worthy enough, and I've only been in town for, like 28 years, but who would be worthy enough to actually even be considered along with Charlie Jones? And I thought of Dr. O'Donohue, who Steve knows very well. He was superintendent here, I think, Steve, for 25 years.
5 years, yeah.
22 years? 22 years. David, I'm just throwing out again to other people, others might think, would be somebody that would be considered. David Troughton was superintendent here for 15 years. Ellen Adele, who was, I think, as beloved a teacher at the high school as probably Charlie was at the middle school.
35 years?
She was here, I think, 35 years, and she walked in the door one day, and her family told us that they wanted to make a donation to a scholarship fund, and they gave us $650,000. I mean, extraordinary things like that. But I think I'd be hard pressed to think of anybody more worthy than Charlie Jones for this type of an honor. I don't like the current process. Citizens petition, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, requires 10 names. 10 names on a citizen's petition, and you can get a warrant article on the town meeting warrant for October town meeting. And then you can bring in 50 people, because there's only about 75 people there. And seriously, and get a school named after you. So I think that process is not a good one. Who knows, the year later, we could come in with another group that says, hey, we want to name this after somebody else, and change the name of the school. So what I'd like to do is, as Mel suggested, or Karen suggested, maybe put together a process that validates this more. Now, for us to even consider that, we'd have to change our policy, because we wouldn't want to consider a process for this
Right.
if we weren't going to change our policy.
Exactly.
But I think that would validate this whole thing more than people just going out and getting a citizen's petition, getting 50 or 60 people at town meeting and voting for it. And I would have to say, I'm probably in favor of it. I think that highly of Charlie. I just would like to see a better process for getting to that point. So what I think we'll do is, and anyone wants to make another comment, Pat?
Just a quick question. Given the school committee's approach to their policy, is it something that can go a parallel path to town meeting, where that policy and the consideration with a committee or a board on who the worthy candidates might be, is that something that can go on a parallel path so that the Charles E. Jones group, if you will, can continue pressing forward?
It would probably be
towards that?
difficult to get
I
on
don't
that
think
path
that-
as quickly as October town meeting, you know.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can still put a petition forward and then withdraw it. Is that, it
Yeah,
can be
yeah,
passed over?
And again, all I'm saying, Pat, is the process. I would like to
I understand,
validate
but
this
would
process.
you go through your process
It's really
and
quick.
be done with
Well-
it by town meeting?
I don't think so.
So that you as a group
Yeah.
would be comfortable, because I feel, if you spend the time to learn about Charles Jones, you're gonna be, as a group, very supportive of the individual. Now, if you're comfortable with the change in your process, then I think you come to town meeting with a positive recommendation towards it.
To me, it's not the individual, Pat. one, we're in the middle of hiring a new superintendent, so I think that that's probably going to be taking a lot of our time. I just don't see us able to get this on the same path. You guys have a pretty big head start on us, and you can easily get 10 signatures for a petition. As Karen said, you can submit the petition, and if we do get there before town meeting, you can withdraw your petition, and we'll have hopefully we'll have something on the warrant. But I don't know if we have the time, because it's very
And
tight.
I think there's a likelihood, I don't know if it's a strong likelihood, Cliff Bowers isn't here tonight, but that we might vote to recommend this at town meeting. I just don't like the way it's done, and it's nothing offensive to Mark or Jonathan. It's strictly that, 10 names on a citizen's petition, a vote at town meeting, and bang, it's done. I'd like to see, like the presentation Mark made,
Make it a
bring
meeting.
that
I need to
together
ask a
at
question.
a committee meeting. Bob first, and then Karen.
I guess, I think you've elaborated on what I'm concerned about and why I'm here, is the fact that any citizen can gather so few signatures and get a group to town meeting to get something passed. And I would appreciate it really if the school committee could come forward with a recommendation. From a member of the Board of Selectmen, I think that would be ideal. And you have more time than the citizens petition.
What's our deadline, do you know,
It would be in September, early September.
to submit a warrant item?
Just before we would put a placeholder in,
Yeah.
and, it would be, the appropriate language would have to be in the warrant when we sign it, and then a week later, we send out the warrant.
I mean, that would even be
Takes
better
place.
if the warrant article came from the school committee instead of the
Absolutely.
citizen
Then,
petition.
then it would really, that's the
Right.
ideal way.
So-
Otherwise, there's gonna be a group tomorrow that's
If we
gonna
have that
We have to
extra
figure
month,
it
I
out.
wanna name the high school.
Right.
Well, that's the thing.
That's the issue.
That's the
So
thing, and
I
it's,
think it's up to the school committee to close this issue. And by the way, I would move forward with putting your article
Yeah.
because you have a deadline.
Right.
But that can be passed over, given the school committee providing
Right.
guidance.
Bob, do you?
Question and
okay,
Bob.
Karen
Yeah,
has a
Karen,
question, go
go
ahead.
Is Mr. Jones alive?
Oh, yes, very much so.
So, I'd love for him to be part of this process. He won't?
You won't.
Knowing
He's a
Charlie,
modest person, that's so great, okay, awesome.
This is not something that's making him feel very comfortable.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Well, I'll just hear some feedback. We've just put a 25-person committee together for the superintendency, and it's taken us a month to go through just the internal vetting process, and we met like weekly, we've done, it's an intense process, and to do that at the same time and not give this what it deserves, there's gotta be a way for us to just figure out how to accelerate it.
Well,
I'm just concerned there's not enough
Well,
time.
if we have the extra month to
Here's,
get it.
here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to take all this under advisement. We have a meeting on August 5th.
And
Sixth.
6th, 5th and 6th.
Does it have to be October, or
No, I was
could
gonna,
you
that's what I was gonna bring
go
up,
through
Jenny.
to June? I mean, that way we have time to vet the policy and the procedure to have it done. Is there any reason that we're pushing for October, or just because it's the next town meeting that's closest?
Because it's the next time.
Yeah, because the school's not opening until 2015, so.
Right.
Right. So what I'd like to do is take it under advisement.
Greg, can I, before you do, can I ask
Yep.
Bob one more question? Bob, is there any kind of procedure that town hall or that are in the town bylaws related to not only naming schools, but naming any buildings?
I couldn't find anything.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there was
That's
one.
a major oversight,
Jerry, Steve
okay.
has one.
Steve?
I'm doing this off the top of my head, but my recollection is that the school committee never really had a thorough procedure for naming anything. And that the bylaw was proposed on an occasion when the school committee had named something, and not everybody in the general public was happy with our choice.
I think the bylaw goes back to 97, I'm pretty sure.
The town bylaw.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
town bylaw.
What I would urge is that, A, the school committee develop a procedure for all naming, not
Mhm.
just
Yes,
buildings.
absolutely.
That you also champion an amendment to the bylaws to strike the existing procedure as soon as you have one solidly in place. I think one of the reasons town meeting went for the one that exists right now is that we, as a committee, could not point to a procedure of our own. So,
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, anybody else? All right, again, I'd ask the committee to take this under advisement. We're going to meet again on the 5th and the 6th?
Yeah, we have the 5th for the
Okay.
interviews and the 6th for
Yeah.
budget, for goal
Goals.
Let's
setting
do
for
it for the
next year.
6th, Kathy.
So we can put it on the 6th agenda.
Okay, why don't we do it in the 6th, the agenda?
Point of clarification, so would we be developing a draft procedure in case we have a discussion about a procedure, or are we?
No, I think
what's our
people need to
homework for that
come,
meeting?
people need to come to the meeting on the 6th, which is only, what,
Week away.
A
10
week
days,
away.
a week away,
It's next
with some
Tuesday.
ideas.
Okay.
And we'll go from there. We'll get something rolling then.
And I'd recommend you go forward with your petition, and if you want, as Bob said, if you want to withdraw it, if we make progress, there's two things that could happen. We could get to the point where we can put something on October, or we could make significant progress and say, we're not going to get it in October, but we'll put it on in June. Then you can make the decision as to whether you want to keep your petition or withdraw it. But, I would obviously proceed with that also.
I think the preference really is for a collaborative effort. We
Yeah.
want to be sure that we are all working together. Obviously, the individual is without reproach, but we need to make sure that we would follow the same process as we would for any change in any policy we make.
You know, Mark, you have on the Board of Selectmen as well, you probably have 3 members that don't know Charlie. You have 3 members on the school committee that don't know Charlie. So there are some people that just, this is all of a sudden hit them and they're saying, who's Charlie Jones? mean,
I know now, this is good.
Yeah, but,
I'd be more than happy to do a similar presentation at the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
Is that a request?
No.
Well, it needs to be, if I'm gonna put it on the agenda.
It's an offer, and if you want to take me up on it, I'll do it.
it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, probably is a good idea. Just to introduce the issue to them and to get the same information in front of them.
All right,
Do we have these slides?
Yeah, did you leave a
Did
copy?
you-
Do you have a
So I
copy?
got I have a single copy of each.
Okay,
And then
that's
I'm also
fine.
going to leave you my email address, so if
Great.
anybody would like a soft copy,
Okay,
via email,
okay.
I can send
but
it to
again,
you.
the trip alone, you could spend, seriously, you could spend 4 hours putting pictures up there. It's unbelievable.
It sounds like an amazing thing. I wish I had gotten to do.
It's still going on now, no, although now they go to the East Coast. I
Honestly,
think.
the 2 trips my kids took, the only time I went out was to meet them in Las Vegas when they got there.
I don't know what that says about you.
Jerry, he scheduled a 4-week vacation around here.
Interesting enough, the trip began and ended in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It really did, yeah.
that was the cheapest airfare.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mark, thank you very much.
Yes,
That was
thanks a lot.
excellent.
Thank you.
Tremendous
Enlightening,
presentation.
informative.
Pat,
Very good.
thank you.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you. Bob,
That's great.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Lillian, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
There's my email address if
Okay.
anybody else
Okay.
wants
I'll
to get
email you.
like a soft copy.
Yeah.
And,
The petition.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mark.
Okay, back to the agenda. SSBC update. The last meeting was, well, we had a couple of meetings, July 8th and 22nd. Kathy?
Yes, I was not able to attend the last meeting, so Mr. Venezia, if you'd like to provide an update to the committee. And again, Mrs. Embriano may have additional information to share.
Jerry, before you do that, how many days do you think it is before the new school opens?
Before the new school opens,
Yeah.
it is 39,
42.
42 days.
42 days.
42 days. Yep. 42 days.
42 days.
Janine, help me out here. The last meeting, we had a brief update from Gilbane.
Yeah,
as to
not
the
much
status
going
of
on.
construction. I don't think there was a whole lot from Doran Whittier in that meeting.
No.
We didn't approve any invoices.
No.
But I can tell you that, were there any major issues that came up at that meeting at all?
There was one minor thing
What was-
with drainage, and it was because
yeah.
the drain was jammed with pine
Yeah.
Pine
needles.
Yeah.
But there was really nothing, was there? There was
No,
nothing?
No, there wasn't a lot.
No,
The
it's
shades.
cosmetic stuff.
Middle
Oh.
school
This- yeah,
shades.
this-
Oh,
the
the
shades come
sign,
down.
That's it.
yeah.
That's the cosmetic stuff.
Well, that was the biggest thing. There are window shades over the old middle school. You've probably seen them if you've been up there. And they were part of the 2-story middle school building that is now part of the inside wall of Main Street. And those
Concrete shades.
Those shades, sunshades were left on. we voted as a committee by a vote of 9-4, actually.
Yeah.
To remove those shades. There's going to be a cost associated with it. But I think that all of us, and Janine and I both voted in favor of it, and I think Mel was in support of it
Yeah.
too. But we were all of the opinion that they needed to come off, that they were not very attractive.
Right.
So,
Who decided
And there
to
was
pick
no
those?
continuity to it.
well, they've been there, I mean, since the school was built.
Yeah, so what happened was there were shades, there are these concrete things that stick out above the windows, and they were on the lower and upper levels and they're taking them all off on the outside of the building. And this one wall on Main Street, we decided to take the bottom ones off, but we didn't take the top ones off. And they just don't look good.
It was kind of an aesthetic thing, to be honest with
Yeah.
you, but, we all felt it just didn't look very good. I can say that I went through the building on Thursday, I know Janine did as well, and the A building, which is the classroom academic building, literally is pretty much ready to receive furniture. The only area of that building that's not complete is the distance learning lab, which has a little bit more work to do. In particular, the seating in the desk area up there. But that building is pretty much complete and ready for furniture. They're still doing some waxing of floors up there. The auditorium is just waiting for a few more pieces for the stage. What's the facing they call it there? The
Proscenium?
Presidium, yeah. But the auditorium has a little bit of work. The media center had been cleared out completely, and the carpet was down, and the media center is completely carpeted. The ceiling's done. I think it's pretty close to being ready for furniture as well. The gymnasium is ready now for the grandstands to be brought in. They were just trying to wait for the last coat of polyurethane to dry. But they're ready for the grandstand and some of the finishing touches in the gym. The fitness area, they had laid the rubber floor in the fitness area. The hardwood floor in the auxiliary gym is down and complete. Main Street still has some work to be done out of the cafeteria, but as Mel pointed out, it's 42 days, and I think they're going to use most of those 42 days, but a lot of it's just now the finishing touches. I had the opportunity, it's probably one of the first ones, to walk through the middle school, and they've been in there since about June 25th, and it is gutted. It is literally, for people who don't understand this, we're not going in there with paint and putting up new wallpaper and some new light fixtures. That building is gutted. There's going to be essentially the four walls standing, and everything else is going to be replaced. They're getting ready to bring in structural steel to support the new walls that they're going to be building, the new roof. And it is just literally, it looks like Berlin in April of 1945 in there. It's just blown apart. So, Janine?
No, you did very good.
Jerry, there was one other thing. They're working, they haven't guaranteed this, but they're working, hoping to get the turf field team building done by football season. No guarantees.
No guarantees.
So that the teams will have the locker rooms there, soccer, football, field hockey. No guarantees, but they said they're going to work pretty hard on that. I
The
don't
team
think-
room's not critical either, because we
No.
still have the
Still have the
gymnasium and the old
gymnasium
locker
for the
rooms
old
right
high
there.
school.
So that was something that was actually scheduled to be done later in the
Yeah.
project, but they're trying to get it done for September.
So exciting.
I can't think of anything else. I mean, they're working on sprucing up the landscaping before the opening of school, I guess is the best way to put it.
August 15th, they're going to mobilize to do some landscaping up there. We weren't very satisfied with what's there right now,
Right.
so they're going to work on it. But again, in fairness to everybody, the project's still under construction. So, it's going to be a construction site on September 8th. Julie?
Is there going to be any sort of open house?
We're going to get to
We're
that
gonna get
in
to
one
that right
second.
now.
The superintendent's going to
That's a
give you
Good
that.
great
question.
segue.
Yep. I was just gonna say that, I was just gonna turn that over to you. You're not reading my mind, are you? If you are, all right, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing.
You really don't want to know what's in
No.
there.
Kathy, do you wanna go through that schedule?
Sure. A draft copy of the schedule for tours of the new high school, as well as the date for the ribbon-cutting ceremony and the community open house is included in your packet for your review. I'll just go through those dates right now orally for the community, and then if these dates are agreeable to the school committee, we'll publish them for the general public. So on Tuesday, August 26th, there will be a meeting with student tour leaders and student leaders that mentor our freshman students, and the principal will meet with them to make sure that they understand the major points of the building that will be provided as part of the tour. He's already had a preliminary meeting with about 15 students, and they will come together and finalize the tour at that particular time. And then on Tuesday, September 2nd, from 3 to 4, interested grade 12 students will be invited to be participating in a tour led by these students. And then on that same date, on Tuesday, September 2nd, from 4:30 to 5:30, interested grade 10 and 11 students will participate in a tour. And then the next day, Wednesday, September 3rd, is freshman orientation day. So from 10 to 1, our grade 9 students will participate in a tour of the facility. We really think it's important for our students to have a firsthand experience in what they can expect when they return on September 8th. And then on Thursday, September 4th, from 2:30 to 4:30, we would provide a tour for our elementary and middle school faculty and staff, because our high school staff will have already started moving in, and so they will participate in internal tours as they're moving into their spaces. Thursday, September 4th, is a professional development day, so at the end of the professional development day, we thought it was natural for some of our students to be providing tours for our elementary and middle school teachers. And then on Saturday, September 20th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we are suggesting that there be a ribbon-cutting ceremony and community open house, where these same students will conduct tours for the general public once we have an official ribbon-cutting ceremony, similar to the groundbreaking ceremony that we had, so that we have plenty of time to invite dignitaries at the state and local level to participate in this momentous occasion.
Comments from the committee?
Question, is an hour enough for the student tours? And what if you get 150 or 130 grade 12 students that want to go through? Is an hour enough to tour
Well, there'll
all
be
them?
15 different tours being led by
Oh, at the
15
same time.
different students at the
They'll just
same
go
time.
different,
They'll go in different
Okay.
directions. That's part of what's being worked out now, Mel, is the
Okay.
different routes that they will
They
take.
can even go in some same directions, if you
They
have a group
can,
with 15,
right.
another group with 15.
And then
But
the-
we want to make
The
sure
other
that
question was
they're
on the open house,
accommodate.
is could we extend, do you think extending it to 3 hours makes sense? If you get,
Sure.
I'm thinking that you're going to get a really big turnout. People
Mhm.
want to see what they're paying for here, and
Sure. I hope so.
I'd like to see that extended another hour. I don't know what the
Mhm.
rest of the committee thinks. I'd like it to go from 10 a.m. to 1. Jerry and
Yeah, I agree.
committee, I mean,
I agree 100%.
and if we don't get that many people, then we just,
Yep.
it'll be fine.
No, I
We can
agree. I
end it
absolutely-
earlier, but I'd like to extend that by an hour.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Kathy, have you checked with Wayne regarding after the tours are done? Because this is going to be on Thursday, and then again on Saturday. Is he going to be able to have everything the way he wants it for opening day on the 8th? I'm talking about a lot of people tracking through there, depending on the weather and everything.
Yes.
All right.
We
Just
will make sure we work with Wayne.
coordinate with him, just because,
We absolutely will, but we wanted to get this
Yeah.
presented to you first. And I've already met with John. John's already met with a group of students. John has had informal conversations with Wayne, but we'll formalize this process once we
Okay.
think we have these dates. We
Right.
did have something scheduled for Monday the 1st, and then we realized it was Labor Day. So we had to change that date.
okay, Karen?
I just, probably a silly question, but do we have any plans to like photograph the events, sort of documenting what's
Oh, we should
been
have NORCAM
happening?
there, yeah, good. And have NORCAM there, too,
For the ribbon cutting,
if possible, yeah.
yes, we did do that for the groundbreaking as
Right.
well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have a great photographic display from start to beginning
Jeff,
from
yeah.
Jeff Simons. I mean,
Yeah.
he's taken
Yeah.
photographs.
From the
So
very
he's
beginning
gonna be
until
doing-
now.
I'm assuming he'll be there, and he'll be
So
doing,
We should
yeah.
obviously notify Jeff.
We should contact him, but I'm
Mhm.
sure he'll be around taking pictures of probably every one of these days.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That would be good if we could have like a streaming, at either in the Main Street or
Yeah.
in the distance learning
I think
lab
that's
of just
great.
like,
Oh,
you
the
know,
picture.
the bone structure, you know, kind of like a time sequence.
Oh, yeah, that would be
Good
great
idea.
to have,
Keep
yeah, to have a
looping
loop
over.
of, from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
groundbreaking through to
And I
the,
think if you did it in the distance learning lab, maybe the auditorium,
Right.
something like
You
that.
could repeat it in different places.
Yeah.
That would be great.
It's a
but I get Jerry's point. I mean, the floor is, the 7
Yeah.
coats of wax, you know, that's
Just everything. You
Wayne's.
can have a lot of people
Right.
traipsing through there.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure Wayne, what his plan is, because, after all those people go through, we're not going to have much time before Monday morning to,
Mhm.
Can you get those blue booties that you?
Oh, there you go, maybe you have to put,
Julie, if I had my way, they'd take off their shoes before they go in there. I'm telling you
I did
right,
think that.
I'm telling you right now.
no, I will say too, I know that the public is really anxious to see this, but I think it makes sense to wait a week and a half after school opens, to give the students the
I agree.
first shot at everything being brand new,
Yeah,
you
then we
know?
can bring everybody in on a Saturday, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
and then we bring everybody in on a Saturday, the school will still look, obviously, sparkling clean, because it's only been open for 12 days, and I just really look forward to it. It's gonna be, are we planning refreshments and anything like that in the lobby, or just?
Yes. Again, once these dates are approved by the school committee, then we'll plan in the same way that we did for the groundbreaking. I believe for the groundbreaking, we worked with Ryers to provide hot apple cider and cider donuts and, had some refreshments for people who decided to come, and we'll probably do the same for the ribbon cutting and for the tours.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Is everybody all right with these dates?
I'm good with
I'm
it.
fine
I'm
with
good.
them.
Good job, Kathy. Looked
Thanks,
good to me.
Kathy.
Next on the agenda is the new superintendent search update. I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Ericetti and non-Dr. Webster. For the two of them to.
Never to be a
Turn it
Dr.
well.
Webster.
So, just to give the committee an update, I am delighted that we have a finalist for superintendent. As a result of the interviews on last Thursday, the subcommittee met and determined to move forward Mr. John Bernard, our high school principal, to be considered by the school committee for superintendent of schools. In your packet, your red folder, I have included some materials for your review. One is just a memorandum memorializing that recommendation, which is non-binding. The invitation for a reception to be held prior to our finalist interviews. August 5th will be a very big day for North Reading for so many different reasons. I believe it's the night out. I'm trying.
Oh, yeah, it's the,
National Night Out.
National Night Out as well. But we will be beginning our activities at 4:30 on Tuesday in the Batchelder School cafeteria until 6 o'clock. This is a reception being sponsored by the subcommittee, the search subcommittee, in honor of Mr. John Bernard. And then we will commence with our meeting at 6:15 for 15 minutes, and we will interview Mr. Bernard at 6:30. Also in your packet is a proposed agenda for that meeting, which I can't imagine we would change. It's pretty much identical to what we did, except for one candidate from our last search superintendent finalist interviews. I also included some confidential materials in your packet. The first is the application from John Bernard, as well as some written notes on reference checks that both Mel Webster and I did concurrently. There are 4 of them. Again, these are confidential because they do represent personnel records. They are not open to inspection. Other than the resume of the candidate, there is nothing that we can share publicly in the packet.
well, in our minutes from the meetings.
Yeah,
That's
apart
it.
from our minutes from the meetings. Also in your packet is a document called Questions for Superintendent Candidates that allow you to probe for depth and more information. I didn't write this. This is a terrible title. But it's from MASC, and it's questions that were forwarded to me by Cliff Bowers from the last search that we did where we hired Kathy. And these are just questions for the committee to consider. I would like to recommend a process for selecting questions. Over this next week, peruse this document of questions and choose, a handful of questions that you would like to ask. When we convene at 6:15 on the 5th, we will then discuss which questions we're going to ask. And then each one of us can ask up to 2 questions. That should take us through an hour and also allow time for questions. I'm of course open to that. It's just a suggestion.
We can come up with our own questions too, right?
Yep, you can come up with your own questions. And then we also included the question guide that the subcommittee used to query the 2 candidates. I'd also like to acknowledge publicly the subcommittee for their time. There were 24 people who gave so much time to reviewing the applications and then also interviewing the candidates. So I'm really grateful for their service. I just want to mention that. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Dr. Patrick Daly, I felt was outstanding in his interview. And Karen mentioned it's a non-binding recommendation by the committee, but I feel since it was so overwhelmingly in support of Mr. Bernard to move forward, and Dr. Daly did not receive enough support to move forward, I think we have to respect that decision, whether it's non-binding or not. I personally wanted to see both candidates come forward. You know, I didn't try to twist people's arms, but I tried to make it clear that if you send both candidates forward to us, you also, I recommended that everybody could put down on their ballot who they favored. So the school committee could take that into consideration when interviewing the two candidates. But I respect the instructions from the subcommittee. Again, I was the first to speak after after the two interviews, and I said I love both candidates, and I literally meant that. And I feel that they were representative of the excellence of this school district. But all of that said, I'm going to respect the direction of the subcommittee. I will ask one thing on the agenda. Should we add an executive session in case we make an offer, it's accepted, and will we go into executive session that night possibly to discuss contract? Or will we do
I
it?
think that's a little premature, Mel, only because we've got time.
Or we don't have time?
We are meeting the next day for the goals workshop, so in the schedule, I had
Can we do that in the goals
written
workshop?
that we recommend for we would either go into executive session after the goals workshop.
Why don't we do it the
if
next day then?
candidate
Okay.
prevails.
Why don't we do it the next day?
Because the next meeting after that is like August 26th or something like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, but-
And there are some things that I think, if we do decide that John is, we offer the position to John, I think there are some things we want to get moving in other areas that, help with the transition. I mean, I know Kathy's here till October 17th or 15th.
Right, that's my way
But
of
still,
thinking is,
there are things that, we should start planning a smooth transition, even if it's
I mean,
August.
obviously on the date, on that Tuesday, I mean, it would have to be pretty quick negotiations to get something done that day, so.
Right. No, I was talking about just for us to talk in executive
Okay.
session. We can do it on the 6th.
Okay.
That's fine. I forgot we had that meeting the next
That's
night.
good.
But again, I
go
would just
ahead.
say, I think the committee was great. That the thoughtfulness of the discussion, the commitment of time, and the way questions were asked, the follow-up questions, and the attentiveness of everybody in the committee. So I felt the community was well represented, and they overwhelmingly supported John Bernard.
So
Thank
just
you, Mel.
one other thing. So obviously, when we interview next week, we have options. We can either hire Mr. Bernard, or we can determine to go and hire an interim. So there are two options that we'll be considering as you review the application. If there's any question that comes up, please contact me. I probably have talked to a lot of people that aren't represented in these materials, because I've gotten a lot of emails from people. I'd also like to just echo what Mel said about Dr. Daly. His interview was outstanding, and he is an exceptional member of this community. I think it would be a disservice for us to forward him to the school committee at this point, given the fact that the subcommittee is a representation of the community, and I think we should respect their recommendation. But I would be remiss in not acknowledging the fact that he is a very highly qualified individual and did meet the criteria for the position.
Agree.
Janine?
I would obviously echo both Mel and Karen's comments in regards to Patrick Daly. I thought he did a phenomenal job. He is a brilliant man, and I would have liked to see him come forward. I think he deserved it as well. And
Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Rocchetti and Mel Webster. They did a fantastic job in this process. I think it went extremely well. I think the committee was a good representation of the community. So you guys did some great work here, you really did.
High five.
And I think we have an excellent candidate, I really do. I too thought Dr. Daly did a fantastic job. I spoke, as did Mel, at the meeting about moving him forward. And quite frankly, if I thought that we should move him forward, I probably would at this point in time. But I think that the committee that we asked to make a recommendation spoke loud and clear, and that was 24 votes out of 24 members for Mr. Bernard. So I think that we're going to take that seriously. We'll do the interviews as Karen suggested, and, you know, we have two options, either to appoint Mr. Bernard or not appoint him.
That's right.
So I'm looking forward to that, and again, I'm very, very pleased with the process, so. All right. Anything else?
I forgot to acknowledge that Mike and
Oh,
also
yes.
Ann Lundell are helping me with the reception. You don't have to bring anything, but I just wanted to ask Mike, do we need to do anything to prepare for that reception, or as committee members?
Nope, it has been scheduled at the Bachelor
Okay.
Cafeteria at 4:30, and Ann Lundell and I will take care of making sure the light refreshments there
Okay.
in time for the reception.
Okay.
Kathy?
The August 5th meeting of the school committee does need to be posted.
Yes.
I have it in my car.
Well, where
I'm
are we
on it.
meeting? We can't, can we meet here or no?
No, we're meeting
This
on
is the
August
Batch.
5th at the Batch, right?
We're gonna meet at the Batch after,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we're gonna stay there.
okay, we're gonna stay at the
Yeah.
Batch.
It's the
Let's
same
stay there.
room, so it's gonna be set up so there's enough spaces for 5 people, not the whole setup, and then a table for the candidate, and then there'll be a reception area around that. So we will ask people to ferry out, you know, into the hallway while we have a discussion at 6:15. But again, that's in public session.
Right.
Because we cannot discuss, you know, what questions we're gonna be asking.
Mhm.
So there's some grayness around whether we can talk about which questions we're gonna ask with the candidate in the room. We obviously would want to keep that quiet, which is why I recommend a procedure of pick your own questions, ask your own questions. As a committee member, what do you want to know? And
Right.
pick 2 of them. And then if it happens to, you know, if somebody else
If
has
it's the
it.
same question, that's gonna be a break for him, because he's gonna be
Yeah,
asking the
then he
same
can
question
just-
twice.
And the 4 of us were actually at the interview, and I would recommend we do the same procedure of the opening statement, questions.
Yeah.
And then
Closing statement.
closing statement preceded by some questions from him.
So the whole thing's gonna be posted at the Batch?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add one other thing, Jerry. It was fascinating in that we did this in public, which we had to do it in public because we did an internal search, and the only reason you can go and do preliminary interviews in executive session with an open search is because if you don't do them in executive session, then some candidates won't apply, because then it'll be revealed that they're applying for a job, and it could put them in, you know, trouble in their existing districts. So it made it, I think the committee was very open and thoughtful about their discussion, but it was done in a professional way. And I do want to say, one of the things that came up from at least a half a dozen people, and I agreed with this wholeheartedly, is what a tremendous team John and Patrick would make in our school system. And I could not agree with that any more strongly. And I just wanted to say that. But it was fascinating doing it in public and making sure that everybody continued to be aware that we were in public. It was being broadcast on NORCAM, the newspaper was here, and everybody respected
Dan
that.
dozed off, though.
Yeah,
so he didn't get
Dan
the
did
whole-
doze off a little bit, but his recorder was going. His recorder was still going. And I would ask if, Dan, to do whatever you can to get that information in the paper about the open house for the social to meet with John next week.
He's already gotten it.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
I sent it
Interview
into them.
public?
yes,
Yep.
What's that?
yes, the
The
interview's
actual
public,
interview is public.
yes,
And it's
it will be
open.
broadcast.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
we're
hopefully
gonna be able
it'll
to
be broad-
broadcast.
oh, actually,
no,
we
we're not gonna
can't-
be able to broadcast from
From
the
the
Batch.
Batch.
Not a
Oh,
live
right.
broadcast.
See, that's why I was,
Well, unfortunately, we could not use this room because they're doing an asbestos abatement.
So,
Who wants to be exposed to chemicals?
it's gonna be closed, this room's gonna be
So this
closed.
is not accessible, and then to meet anywhere else, we're gonna have the same issue.
We have nowhere else that we can do a live broadcast right now, except for here because of the construction at the.
library at the middle school? No,
No,
no.
because of the
No.
construction at the,
There is
at the
no
schools,
library.
there's no place else.
Other than the high
Okay.
school library. but-
Next up on the agenda, we have a draft schedule for meeting dates for 2014-2015 school year, and ask the superintendent to give us those
Yes.
dates.
Thank you. As you can see, the dates have been mapped out for you. They're very similar to the schedule for this school year. What I did note was, this school year, you had one meeting in December as opposed to 2. I did list a second meeting date for December for you to consider for next year. That is the the week of the Christmas holiday, and you decided to forego that, that meeting date for this school year. So I'm not sure if you want to keep it on, or if you would like to eliminate the December 22nd. There is only one Tuesday date so far, and that is October 14th. No, I'm sorry, and May 28th. That would be the...
Because of holidays, obviously.
Right, because of holidays. Now, as I was preparing this calendar for you, this overview of the meeting schedule, it came to my attention that even though the school committee meets on the 2nd and the 4th Monday of the month, the Board of Selectmen have planned to meet on September 8th in this room. So right now, and what I did was I
Tried to
planned
stay away from that.
to have the September dates in this room, just in case the Distance Learning Lab wasn't ready for full broadcast by
Well,
the 8th.
If they have to tape it, I mean, if they have to record it, they can just record it, right?
They might have to record it. So, again, two things. You can not meet on Monday, September 8th, and try to meet on another day that week, or meet on Monday, September 8th, and we meet
Let's
in
take
the
a shot at the
new...
8th.
Yeah, we should meet on the
Let's
8th.
take a shot at the 8th.
At the Distance Learning Lab.
Lab.
So
Yep.
then I would cancel the reservation for this room for September 22nd as well. And we're going to do
Yes.
it all up in the new...
We gotta live on the edge here
Yeah.
a little
Okay,
bit.
Yep.
just want to make sure.
The other thing, Kathy, is shouldn't it say for the October 6th, instead of our meeting in the NRHS library, would not that be the NRHS MS Media Center?
Yes, but it's not MS yet.
But
It's
so it must be
NRHS
Media
Media
Center.
Center.
So town
Thank
meeting's
you.
gonna be in the library and not...
No, no,
the
no, no,
auditorium?
no, no, just your meeting
Our
prior
meeting
to
prior
the
to
town
town
meeting.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Just your meeting. But yes, I will change that to Media Center.
Any other questions or comments about the meeting schedule?
Kathy's last meeting will be Tuesday the 14th, correct? That's the plan right now?
That is the plan right now.
Okay.
All right, we'll have to plan something special.
We'll have to, oh, thanks.
I haven't figured it
Let's
out
just
yet.
not even think about
We'll do
it.
something.
And so if these dates look good to you, we'll get these published. But you need to advise me on what you would like to do for December 22nd.
22nd, do we
I
need a
would
meeting?
keep it on as a potential with a question mark, and then if, because we never know what's gonna be happening, but if there's no need for it, then we can just cross it off the schedule.
So I'll put tentative meeting next to it.
Yeah, I'd keep it as a tentative date,
Tentative
just in
meeting.
case we need it.
Yes, and we'll leave it there for now.
Okay.
You could have snow.
That's
Next
right.
up on the agenda, we have the October...
Do we have to vote on this, or no? We can vote on the dates?
I believe you do vote on the calendar.
Okay, I'll
of
take a motion then
meetings.
to vote on the school committee meeting calendar. I'm not sure we do, but we'll do it anyway.
I'll move to approve the meeting date schedule for 2014, 2015.
We have a
through
second.
June.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Webster, second by Ms. Imbriano. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries by a vote of 4-0. Next on the agenda is the October 6th town meeting warrant article, and as you heard Mr. Messeri, we do have to submit by Monday, August 18th, any articles that we want considered at town meeting, and I think that we have certainly one, and I talked to the superintendent about this, but I think the Ellen Adele contribution warrants us, again, going forward to town meeting, in order to name, I think it was gonna be an art room, right?
An art room, we said, yeah.
After Ellen Adele.
Now, the art rooms won't be open until next year, right?
That's right.
So, but we still should go this, I mean,
Yeah.
we've already,
No, let's do it.
yeah.
Let's do it. Any, Kathy?
Based on the current bylaw, does it come forward from the school committee as a recommendation on the warrant? There's not any need for 10 signatures?
No, that
coming
would be a
directly
citizen's
from you.
petition. We can put on it as our own article, which is what we have to consider for the Mr. Jones thing, too. But no, we can put on as our own article. I think language-wise, I don't know, Mike, who does that normally, as far as coming up with the language?
I think we would probably
Talk
advise
to
town
council.
council
Okay.
on that, yeah.
All right.
I have a
This-
question about this date, though. So we have more leeway than this August 18th date, right?
Yeah, Bob Messeri said September, but he didn't have an exact date. We should find
September?
out, That's what Bob said today.
I was reading-
Bob said we could
Yeah,
put the
he said
language in.
September.
Yeah, okay, I was reading the memo here, and it seemed like that they said August 18th.
No, but here's the issue, Jerry. They can put a space holder in for a warrant
Yeah.
item from the school committee to name the middle
But
school.
they also told us no space holders either, I think.
I
in their
know.
memo.
No, but Bob
Last
just said
year.
tonight,
All right,
and then he
all
said
right,
if we
all
give
right.
him the language
All right.
by September, before the printing of the
Right.
warrant.
But if we
So-
can have it by August 18th, we can submit it
Well, we
just
don't
to
have time
be on the
either.
safe side. On what, the Ellen Adele thing?
No, the,
Oh, no, I'm talking about the Ellen Adele,
yeah.
yeah. We're gonna need a motion on this.
Is that the only thing we have?
I think that's the only article we have.
Anything
right?
else, Michael or Kathy?
No, not for the October town meeting.
All right. I'll make a motion to submit a warrant item for the October town meeting, recommending that an art room be named at the new high school, middle school, or new high school?
Yeah, I would say both. I think the art rooms serve both,
The art rooms are
right?
shared by both, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
At the new at the new high school, middle school shared facility to name an art room after Eleanor C. Dell.
I'll second that.
Okay, again, we have a motion by Mr. Webster, a second by Ms. Imbriano. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries by a vote of 4-0.
So do you want me to contact the town council on that?
I
Yes.
think, I think we're gonna actually see him tomorrow. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think we need some language
Mhm.
to get over to the selectmen on that.
Darren Klein. Darren Klein.
Probably have to take a look at the bylaw.
I have his contact.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have minutes. We have the June 2nd, 2014 open session minutes, which were just prior to town meeting.
I looked through and found no errors since I wrote them, so.
That stands to reason.
If
If he found some errors, he probably
Wait,
fixed
that
them
wasn't a
already.
dig at you, I'm just saying that I wrote them, so. Oh, do you have an edit? I'll make a motion to approve the June 2nd open session minutes.
Do we have a second?
Come on.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Mr. Webster, second by Ms. Brianna to approve the June 2nd, 2014 open session meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries 4-0. With the June 9th, 2014 open session.
I have one error. Do you have an error?
Yes.
Go ahead, you say yours.
I can't remember what it is now. I know it's not, wait a minute.
Can't be that big an error.
It's small.
Mine's big.
What? But say yours. I
It
wanna
says
find mine.
Chairman Webster called the meeting to order at 6:35 PM, and I believe that Mr. Venezia was the chairman that night. In fact, I'm certain he was.
See, Mel's still.
I'd like it to be that way, but.
No, it's another one, but never mind.
Okay, with that change, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the June 9th regular session minutes.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Ericetti, second by Mr. Webster with one change. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries by a vote of 4-0. June 9th, 2014 executive session meeting.
Make a
Minutes.
motion to approve as written.
This is the one I thought there was
Oh.
something.
Okay.
There was something about this meeting which I wasn't sure that we actually talked about, which was I can't say, right?
No,
Did we talk about this? Did we just
yes.
talk about the
No, we
name
did.
change?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
we
Then
did,
I
we
was
talked
like-
about that.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
good. Never mind.
Okay,
Motion to approve the June 9th executive session minutes.
Second.
we have a motion by Ms. Ericetti, a second by Mr. Webster to approve the June 9th, 2014 executive session meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries by a vote of 4-0. June 23rd, open session.
Couple minor errors. Under visitors, we had Emma Hoey, student representative, but she wasn't there that night. We didn't have a student report. And then on the school committee award of merit, I may have missed this. Was that nominated by John Bernard?
It
or
was.
Yep.
It was.
It was. And it was stated as so by the superintendent, yeah.
Okay.
I'm still back on the student report. It says on the open session, June 23rd, there was no student report.
Right, that's why I
Yeah,
said
but-
take Emma Hoey off
Under
the,
visitors.
Oh, under
Attention, she
visitors.
wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
But yes, it was, and it did come up at the meeting, Mel.
okay, and then in the third line of that, under the school committee award of merit, so it's section 3D2, the third line says, to commemorate this award was presented by two, so the by should be taken out of there, just say just was presented to Mr. Carey by Mr. Venezia. And that's
Okay,
it.
do I have a motion as amended?
As amended, I move to approve the June 23rd regular session minutes.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Ericetti, seconded by Mr. Webster, with the amendments to approve the June 23rd, 2014, was that open,
This is open.
Open session.
open session minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries 4-0. And finally, the June 23rd, 2014 executive session minutes.
I had no issues with this.
Yeah, move to approve as written.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Webster, second by Ms. Arricchetti. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries by a vote of 4-0.
That was exciting. All right.
All right, we have a budget update from
Riveting.
Mike.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm happy to present this evening the final 2014 budget report. I'm also pleased to report that the closeout process of fiscal year 2014 went very smoothly. As anticipated, given the steps we had taken throughout the fiscal year to take a very conservative approach towards spending, we had funds available mainly in salary accounts and utility accounts to prepay special education expenses for next year. We were able to exceed the $150,000 amount that we had forecasted during the budget season. I think this will be very helpful in providing some additional flexibility as we begin fiscal year 2015. In addition, we were able to find the available funds to pay May and June transportation and athletic invoices from the general fund as we closed out fiscal year 2014. This enabled us to meet our carryover targets in the revolving funds to help match our fiscal year 2015 budgeted offsets. As you recall, this also allowed us to have the funds available in fiscal 2015 to help support the additional assistant soccer coaching positions for the boys and girls teams. So I'm happy to report that we were able to find the funds in fiscal 14 to do that. As it has been discussed, the district we've experienced several challenges in the food service program. And I'm happy to report that the loss that we experienced at the end of fiscal 2014 was significantly less than it was the prior year in fiscal 2013. This was mainly the result of reduction in staffing to help match meal per labor hour standards, a tighter control on inventory, and a steady increase in meals sold. So we actually experienced almost a 7% increase on meals sold throughout the district. So our participation in our meals sold is on a steady incline. So as a result of really these three factors, the operating loss was about $79,428, but this is significantly less than compared to the prior year where it was over $118,000. So I do feel that this food service program is certainly on the right track, and I'm very optimistic that with the opening of the new high school this fall and with some of the new initiatives that were proposed by Chartwell's in their proposal this past year, that these numbers will continue to improve. So overall, I was very happy with how fiscal year 2014 closed out. I think we took that conservative approach to spending throughout the budget season really allowed us to do the things we had to do to put us in very solid financial standing as we begin fiscal 2015. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Michael?
I just have a question about transportation. So I know you didn't talk about it, but can you just explain to me the homeless transportation situation and what the effect has been on the closeout?
Correct. So you may recall throughout the fiscal year, we were seeing a rise in our homeless transportation costs, and that's something that we're mandated to do.
Right.
When we have homeless students that arise, we usually share that cost with the district. And this year, we did see a rise in the number of students that were requiring that transportation. So our line item was, we did exceed our budget in that area. The state does reimburse districts. This year, that reimbursement was funded pretty close to 50%. So based on our actual expenses this year, we will receive a reimbursement up to 50% of what we expended this year, next year. That is a town general fund
That's what I thought, okay.
amount, so that will go to the town general fund. But we did spend about $35,000 this year in homeless transportation. We budgeted about $20,000, so we did exceed that amount.
That's what I thought.
But as a result, we'll see a higher amount of reimbursement this coming fiscal year that will go to the town general fund.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for Michael?
Jerry, I know Director of Buildings and Grounds, Wayne Heatmeiser Hardiker, does a great job of, of conserving energy in our
Absolutely.
buildings. So what I would like to see moving forward, though, is I think it'd be really interesting to keep a close watch on how much we're spending at the high school on a month-by-month basis compared to the old high school. And it's going to be interesting because we'll have them both operating. The question is, you know, do you include everything or just the academic wing and, you know, the cafeteria and the auditorium as compared to, in the gym compared to the current building? I'd like to
Right.
see, you know, how much we end up really saving in terms of natural gas use.
Sure.
Electricity. I know the electricity is going to be up next year. We know that.
Right.
But it would be interesting to see if we're really, how energy efficient that building is, because it's been built to be energy efficient.
No, absolutely. So those are numbers, we do track the usage and the cost on a monthly basis. So we'll be able to compare, you know, both buildings next year. It'll be a good comparison, as you mentioned. And one of the things that we're anticipating based on what the, you know, project in the new building is supposed to do is that shift from gas to electricity.
Right.
You know, because of the new building and the chillers and so forth. So we'll actually have a good, we'll want to be watching that closely to see if that dynamic is happening. And but we'll have really get some good data to look at on a monthly basis, because we've been tracking that data for several years now, each month.
Right. Okay.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you, Michael.
Great.
We don't have any staffing changes to report at this time, but we do have we do have a donation. I'd ask the superintendent to tell us about that.
Sure. Athletic Director David Johnson requests that the school committee accept the following donation from the Friends of the North Reading Volleyball. And this donation is $500 to help fund the expenses associated with the North Reading girls volleyball team.
Great.
You have a motion to accept?
I make a motion to, oh, sorry.
That was very, very close, but I'm going to give it to Janine for the motion.
With
I would
gratitude.
like to
With
make a
gratitude.
motion to accept the donation from the Friends of the North Reading Volleyball in support of the girls' volleyball team of $500 with gratitude.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Imbriano, second by Ms. Arricchetti. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries 4-0. And thank you very much to the Friends of Volleyball. Subcommittee reports. Athletic Subcommittee met on July 8th, and Mr. Webster was present, as was I. I'm going to ask Mr. Webster
We
to
re-
give us a summary of what happened.
We really only had, we basically reviewed a lot of items. We reviewed, we had discussed 2 meetings ago, the potential addition of portable batting cages to be used at the high school. And former head baseball coach, Mr. Frank Carey, came in and met with Dave Johnson, athletic director, and John Menard, principal of the high school, and to scout out areas at the gym. And I believe the conclusion was there definitely will be areas there. However, we won't need those until a year from next spring, because they'll still have the bomb shelter batting cages at the current high school that they can use next year. We also, Mr. Venezia provided an update on numerous aspects of the new school, which he talked about earlier. Mr. Johnson has advertised, I believe, for all of the open positions except for the girls lacrosse, which is not until the spring. And he's got to fill the 2 new assistant varsity soccer coach positions pretty quickly, since that starts in August.
And I think he's advertised for both varsity baseball and varsity softball.
Right, he has,
as
yeah.
well.
I have a question. With the large group of freshman girls, I believe, coming through that signed up for volleyball, it was kind of mentioned that there was larger than anticipated. Was there any discussion in
No,
regards to that?
it was not raised. I mean, if that's an issue,
We should put it on the next
but
meeting.
we're not meeting until September.
That's
we don't
right,
have a meeting in
the athletic
August.
subcommittee.
But
You know
that was
something,
not,
Janine? I think we were supposed to take a look at that, too.
that was not raised at the meeting.
No, I had approached one of the coaches around getting some numbers prior to the athletic subcommittee meeting, but I did not receive any information.
Kathy, can we get that information to see how many potentially are going to be signed up for volleyball? And then see if it's going to warrant us taking a look at an additional coaching position, because generally there's only two teams. It's the varsity team and the sub-varsity team. I think they've had freshman teams in the past. We've had 3 teams in the past.
Mhm.
I know we've had 3 teams in the past, absolutely.
I mean, that's the issue we have with
Recent
soccer,
past.
is the numbers.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
So if
if
the
they-
number's warranted, I would guess, and again, I'm not sure how many of the coaches want to work with, but I would guess if there's much more than 25, 26 girls, that we may have to start looking at a
Mhm.
13.
I had a preliminary conversation with one, I think it was an assistant, or maybe the subgroup coach. And,
Why don't we see if we can get a number count then?
yeah, I was surprised I
Okay.
didn't hear back.
I don't think there was much anything else we discussed. I mean, there's always discussion about, we did discuss going out to, and I think Rita was going to start working on this, going out to a lot of the youth groups in town and the booster groups in terms of, actually, I think Rita Mullen was going to put together a list of all the items we may need to raise funds for at the athletic facilities outside, things like bleachers and other items that are not part of the current project. Now, there's also issues where, depending on how much money is left over, we may have, like we did with the batch, we had funds left over, we were able to do some additional things. So, those are all kind of up in the air. I don't want to start raising money from booster groups and then find out we already have funds available, so.
Well, we're working on just, I don't want to talk about this tonight, but Mike is working on a policy for,
Right.
funds from booster groups. That we're
Exactly.
gonna have the
Correct.
policy subcommittee take a look at very shortly.
Yep.
But beyond that, we could use this forum in our TV time to say that one of the things we'd like to do from an athletic perspective is to take a look at the new the all-purpose practice field and the new softball field. And those are going to come into place in 2015. But one of the options would have is to possibly or potentially sod those fields, which would make them usable probably a year in advance of seeding them.
Right.
If we just seed them.
Right.
The other thing that's been brought up to me is if we could raise the money, if we had the money, a great investment would be to do an artificial turf field
rather
there,
than-
because the drainage system is already part of the package, part of the construction package. So if there's any benefactors out there that would like to, again, consider making a contribution toward those types of items, I'm sure they can get in touch with the athletic director. All right?
I think that was it. We didn't,
Okay, I can't think of anything else. Subcommittee schedule, we have a policy subcommittee meeting scheduled for August 5th at 1 o'clock, and a finance planning team is August 22nd at 8:15 a.m. The administrative report, Superintendent Willis.
Yes, a brief administrative report was distributed to you prior to the meeting this evening with 2 points of interest. The first point being the park update. Just wanted to provide an update to you. As you know, on June 23rd, the North Reading School Committee voted to support the administration of park in grades 3 through 8 and in grade 9 for the 2014-15 school year. As you know, districts were provided with 2 decision deadlines, an early deadline of June 30th and a final deadline of October 1st. So as of June 30th, the early deadline, a total of 297 school districts made the binding selection, with 176 districts, or 59%, choosing to administer park in the spring of 2015, and 121 districts, or 41%, choosing to administer MCAS. What I included for you as an attachment to the supplementary report is an overview of what was published by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education on July 2nd, which gives you a little bit more detail of what I just shared with you. So in taking a look at the associated list of districts and their selections as to whether they chose MCAS or park, I just wanted to take a look at the surrounding districts. So I'll just share for you very, very briefly some of the districts that have chosen park that are located either in the Cape Ann League or are contiguous to North Reading, and those that selected MCAS. So in addition to North Reading, those that selected park were Andover, Reading, Burlington, Boxford, Topsfield, and Middleton, Beverly, Danvers, Stoneham, Wakefield, Woburn, and Melrose. And those that selected MCAS in the local area or the Cape Ann League, Linfield, Hamilton, Wenham, Dracut, Ipswich, Peabody, Wilmington, Winchester, Saugus. There are also school districts that I have not named that did not submit by the early decision and are waiting to make their decision in October, and that includes my hometown of North Andover. So.
It's interesting, there's no real pattern there as far
There
as
is
the
no real
districts and
pattern.
the demographics
There is
of the
none.
districts.
There's
It's really
absolutely no,
strange.
you've got some urban districts
Yeah.
choosing Park, you've got urban districts choosing, there's absolutely no pattern,
Yeah.
none.
Okay, thank you, Kath.
Just a very quick update. And second, you've already mentioned this, I believe, this evening, the invitation to the swearing-in of our new town administrator, Michael Gilberto, will be held on August 4th at 9 a.m. in this very room, and you're all invited to attend.
Thank you. Finally, correspondence, I think there's a memo from Mike Conley in there regarding, a memo that he sent out to facility users
Yeah.
based on the policy that we've adopted recently, so.
That's correct. So this memo went out after the facility rental fee schedule, along with the revised policy and rules and regulations. So all of our major facility users were notified and received this memo, along with links, and everything is on our website now. So the new rules and regulations, along as the new fee schedule and so forth, is up on our website. With links and so forth for them to take a look at the rules and regs and the documents. I requested that they contact me with any questions or any additional requests for more information or additional informational sessions. I've really not heard from many of them. There's been a couple inquiries coming into my office, mainly all around when they could start using the new space in the new building. So that's mainly the questions, and we've kind of been telling them that we have to open the school, and it's probably going to be looking at more towards the middle of the year, December, January timeframe, January 1st timeframe. So, but that's it. So there hasn't been a lot of inquiries or questions coming out based on the memo and the new the revised fee schedule, along with the regulations document that's been posted on the site.
Thank you, Mike.
Jerry?
Yep, Mel?
I will state that if we're gonna hold to those dates, that's gonna be a huge issue with youth basketball. If we're gonna hold to not letting them use the new facilities until the first of the new year, because all they'll have is the high school gym. So that's gonna be an issue that we're
I
gonna end
actually-
up dealing with.
Yeah, I didn't even hear
Yeah.
Michael say
I mean, I
that.
think we
Yeah.
can work these out.
We'll work
There's
that
gonna
I've
be
already met
protections.
with youth basketball.
Right, I know you did,
about
right.
fees. But I think, yeah, absolutely, this season's gonna start well before.
Yeah,
the
I-
first
They
of the
start
year.
practicing in
I think
November
we're really
usually.
I think these are the
Maybe earlier.
specialty rooms, certainly
Okay.
the
Okay.
Performing Arts Center, the auditorium.
As far as the
and
gym.
Distance learning.
Distance learning lab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna definitely need the space because they've lost the middle school.
Right. I will say one other thing, that based on the approval of the Center for Performing Arts and Distance Learning Lab manager, that job description and the job was posted and has been advertised, and we are receiving applicants for that.
So I had I actually had an inquiry about that position. How do I direct them? Can they just call you, or,
They can certainly contact me. The job is posted on School Spring. There's
but
a
they're
link
not,
to that
they're
from
not
our
a school
website.
administrator? Can they still get on there from the website?
They can. I mean, they can certainly create and username and password. And the best way to do it.
I'm gonna just have them
really-
call, I'm gonna have them call you
But they
and
can
you
call
can
me. I
help
can
them.
walk them
Okay.
through it.
All right,
That's
thanks,
no
Mike.
problem.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And our future meetings are set up, I'll repeat again, August 5th is the interviews for the superintendent's position. That's at the Batchelder School, beginning at 6:15 PM. We also have a meeting scheduled for August 6th, which is 6 PM, and that's our goal-setting workshop. That'll be at the central office at the high school. August 25th, regular meeting, Town Hall Room 14, and September 8th, a regular meeting, 7 PM, Town Hall Room 14.
No,
The 8th is
I'm
now
sorry,
the
the 8th,
distance
that's right.
learning lab.
We're going to the Distance
Distance
Learning
Learning
Lab.
Lab.
Jeez, how could I forget that?
It's gonna be awesome, and I'm gonna make cupcakes.
All right. Anything further? Anyone got anything further? If not-
Don't forget to mention again the social for John.
Yes.
Yeah, what
To
Yes,
meet with John
that's at
Bernard
4:30 on
On
the
the
5th, at the
at
Batchelder.
the bat.
Yeah.
It's open to the public.
Yep, anybody who wants to come by, light refreshments.
Okay, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Ms. Imbriano, second by Ms. Ricchetti. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion passes by a vote of 4 to nothing.
What are you doing with that?
I'm just playing with this.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.